Hello everyone. Uh, I am here with a painting that I recently made after Warren Christie was announced as Bruce Wayne for the CW Arrowverse shows, and I was personally really excited with the idea of seeing Bruce Wayne in that specific version of the DC universe because I've grown up watching The Flash, and even though I don't necessarily watch the show anymore uh, as consistently as I used to, that build up that Arrow and the Flash had all the way from the start was something and still is something very monumental for television history, because the way it has been done till now is something that hasn't exactly been attempted by any other TV network at scale. So that was a very exciting piece of news that genuinely soared through the entire comic book fandom. So I thought I should perhaps try and make a Batman versus Superman piece, but with the CW version of the characters. And the hardest part about this piece was trying to find the references for these two guys where the shadows matched each other, where I actually had a good enough angle to be able to make them look like they're in a situation where they're gonna fight, right? And specifically Tyler Hoechlin as Superman, because majority of his scenes are extremely uh, desaturated looking, and that's mostly because of the way these shows are filmed. So I had to go up, look up a lot of video references, specifically for the poses as well. So one good piece of advice I would like to give to anyone out there who's working with references for their digital art or even their traditional art is to look for video references instead of photo references for their poses. That's the one good thing that I genuinely have learned going to animation school, because for my to design school for my animation course, is to basically just figure out a way to get the proper poses you want from videos, because the movement is always going to be more dynamic. It's always going to be much more active looking compared to photographs. You sure can get like really good results with photograph images references as well, but I've worked with both, and I do believe that if you want to produce a more dynamic illustration, it's better working with video references. But what I have done with this specific painting is I've tried to mix both those workflows. For Batman, I had to look up a few action scenes from a couple of movies to get those shots in place where someone's getting punched or someone is ready to launch a punch. So that definitely helped with uh, Batman's pose here. But Superman, Tyler Hoechlin he's a big guy, but he's not exactly anybody's ideal Superman when it comes to the physique, and that's something that all of us, at least for the ones who've actually followed the shows like consistently, that's a complaint a lot of people have had. So what I tried doing was mixing Tyler Hoechlin Superman with Henry Cavill Superman. So the base body that I specifically used for this painting for Superman was Henry Cavill's, and the face and the suit design was obviously something that I mixed and matched with the new 52 suit, and the concept art for the Superman and Lois show that was released by uh, CW. Another thing that really was a major obstacle for this specific painting was trying to figure out a way to draw Batman's cowl, because majority of the references for that Batman helmet, for that specific Batman mask, were from the Batwoman suit. But even then, the mask is a little different. So to figure out a way to actually uh, make it look the way it actually does in the show for whatever little time we actually see it for, and then making the suit work as well. And a lot of people don't really like the CW suit, CW Batman suit, but I'm one of the few who actually like have some appreciation for it. I do think it's a pretty good suit. I mean, if it can be made a little bit more form fitting and everything, I think it can actually like make that version of the character look really nice. Uh, So that's what I tried doing here. What I basically tried doing was study the way leather looks specifically and how leather garments are made, because majority of his suit is made out of leather for the show. And the parts that are cloth were a little bit easier to work with. But I would suggest whoever is watching this, I would suggest you guys do end up studying how garments work, where the seams of the garments are located, because there is uh, this one seam that runs all the way from your shoulders down to the very end uh, of the garment on the underside of your arm. So that again is something that is extremely important to look at. And then the next major thing that I struggled with was trying to make Superman suit work properly, because I wanted it to have that really classic looking Superman aesthetic, but still be in line with what the CW is doing. And they've recently transitioned a lot more into the cloth suits that they've started putting up into the productions. So to just have that in place was something that I tried doing with this painting. As far as the suit textures are concerned, I love the Man of Steel suit. I love the way the suit is textured in that movie. So that's what I tried putting into this specific painting. But instead of making the texture look really small, I expanded it up so it can actually have that really, really alien uh, uh, look for the entire costume. So that was again something that was really, really fun tackling when it came to this specific painting. I would suggest, and what I tried doing with this specific painting was trying to figure out a way for the anatomy to work properly. And for that specific uh, exercise, I would suggest studying live photography models. What we do in design school is we do have certain sessions where we have live drawing sessions and we have to draw from a model who's there posing for us. But for a lot of people, that's not exactly super accessible. So using photographs in that sense does help. What I'm doing out here in this specific period is trying to figure out a way to make the background work. I wanted it to have this really desaturated looking background in the back, but really bring emphasis to the main characters, right? So what I did was I imported a stock image of a city and I desaturated the blues down and then added some fire elements into the picture, and then applied some Gaussian blur, flattened the layers, and then used a lens distort filter so it looked the way backgrounds usually do when you're recording movies or when you're shooting movies. Yeah, I would suggest seeing and studying different camera apertures and different camera lenses, because the way that background is going to be distorted is different for each lens. So what I went with for this specific painting was a 60-65mm basic camera lens for the DSLRs that you get. So I have a DSLR here. So what I did was I tried studying what the most out of focus background can look like for a specific picture, and that is the same thing that I applied here. So as an illustrator, I think it's extremely important for all of us to actually not just learn from life drawing or traditional art. It's very important to delve into other creative mediums as well, whether it's film or whether it's photography, animation as well. And all of those lessons can be applied specifically to your illustrations, because a lot of stuff that I work with here and the thing that I specifically specialize in is keyframe illustrations. And a lot of Marvel Vizdev illustrators do this as well. A lot of concept designers do this as well. They try and make that specific scene look like a moment out of a movie or a moment out of a short film. And that is exactly what I'm trying to achieve with these illustrations as well. And that's the entire point of the tutorials that I'm putting up as well. It's to be able to put you guys in a situation where you can see how I'm making these things look the way they do. Because I've always been fascinated by film, and there are a lot of things that I really, really want these studios to actually tackle a lot of source matter that I really want them to put up on film. And a lot of that will never really see the light of day. I'm not even sure if we'll actually see Batman and Superman fight on the CW, and I really wanted to make something for the audiences of these shows and movies so they can see these moments come to life. So painting them the way they would look in movies is the best way to go for me specifically. It can be extremely different for you. uh, Boss Logic, for example, he does fan art as well of the same matter that I'm talking about, of things that you may not see on film, or things that you will see in the future but don't have a specific look for at the moment. So the way he goes about it, he tries to create posters and everything. He's done a tremendous job doing that. What I am trying to do here is trying to make them look like movie scenes, so you actually get the essence of the scene, of the entire backdrop of the character as well. And I think that is what makes my work different. And I think being able to find that thing that makes your work different from others is the thing that can really like push you forward. Because I mean, I'm not going to pretend that there aren't 100 other people drawing superheroes out there. There are, and some of them do a much better job than I can. And I know at the end of the day, the thing that makes their work stand out as much as they have made their work stand out is the fact that there is something unique about it. Even if the content of the painting itself is extremely similar to stuff that other people are painting as well. So that 100% is something that needs to be kept in mind. In this specific part of the painting, what I was trying to do was figure out a way for the helmet to look really form-fitting. And what we basically do for that is just take references from like old Batman helmets or Batman cowls. Specifically for this painting, the main inspiration was the Batwoman cowl. So what we need to do as illustrators when it comes to this specific part of the painting is to figure out a way to actually conceptually create something that can tangibly fit on someone's head. It needs to have form, it needs to have structure, it needs to fit around the person's head in a way where it's not distorting the person's silhouette. That again is something that's extremely important about character design, is to figure out the silhouette of the character. If I black these paintings out right now, and if I specifically black out the parts of the painting that I'm trying to show you right now, you will be able to recognize these characters. Superman's hair and his cape looks a certain way. If I completely take all the details out and make him a black character in the specific, and like just completely cover his body in black, and you will not be able to see any details, you'll still be able to figure out that it's Superman. That's the entire point. That's the entire point of having those silhouettes in place. So you need to think of the entire painting, for example, as an industrial designer as well. That is exactly the point that I'm coming up to as well. You need to have the ability to use your knowledge from all these different areas and mediums of design and apply them and use them to make your illustrations look better. So for anyone out there that this tutorial reaches, I would strongly suggest and advise that you guys study other mediums of design as well, whether it's production design, industrial design, parts of filmmaking, parts of photography, because I personally cannot photograph stuff. I have friends who can like click really amazing photographs. I cannot do that. But I know the basic principles of what and how a camera works. I know how photography is done, so I can apply those skills here. Even if I personally am not skilled enough to use a camera as well as they would. So that again is something that is extremely important, and to just be able to like use that knowledge, I think is extremely important. What I'm trying to do here at this specific part in the painting is to make the suit look very cloth-like. What I went to for inspiration for this specific part was the book that Alex Ross released with his rough sketches. I think it was called Rough Justice or something like that. I have a digital copy of that, and he basically has desaturated images of his sketches and his primary color thumbnails. And once you start studying that, you actually can see how the light and shadow of the shoots work. So what I basically wanted was to create a very cloth-like feel for this, and then apply textures on top of that to make them look like, for example, leather, or for example, carbon fiber, and whatever else is used in the CW shoot. That again is something that was extremely important. But I'm going for Superman here. I want the skin to really glow from the inside, and that again is something that Zack Snyder did with Henry Superman as well. And I am personally not the biggest fan of the blue lasers, but that the CW version has. But I wanted his skin to have that really red looking glow from the inside when his eyes light up. So what I'm trying to do here is just figure out a way for those shadows to work, apply a distorted lens filter on top of that right after I make his eyes light up, and that is going to give him that really desaturated yet bright look that Superman has when his heat vision is activated. So that again is something that is extremely important to learn. What I would suggest for this specific part of the painting is to see and learn how light sources work, how ambient light works, how ambient occlusion works, how direct lights work, what surfaces look like when they are emitting light, what they look like when they're reflecting light. And for example, to study the way his eyes light up and the rest of the skull lights up when his heat vision is activated, I had to go up and study the way hands work when you put them in front of a window when like sunlight is coming in. Your hands tend to light up. You can see through the first few layers of skin, which is why it looks really orange. For example, even ears, like when you're like directly flashing a light onto somebody's ear, it tends to look really orangish, like the cartilage area of the ear. So that again is something extremely important to study. Being able to study light sources, shadows, and how light and shadow works harmoniously is extremely important to make it far into creating realistic / semi-realistic illustrations. So that again is something that is extremely valuable and important that I learned. To just be able to use this knowledge from other places. And the only thing I would suggest for doing that is to watch tutorials, more tutorials, read stuff, and just observe as much as possible. The one thing that like my lecturers have constantly told me to improve and focus on, and not just me but every other student that I've seen as well, is to just observe as much as possible and then learn from that. What I was doing here was figuring out a way to make his veins light up. So I just imported a PNG file of what veins look like and put them up where his eyes are, and then used color dodge and a multiplier layer together to make it look like his veins are lighting up. So that again is extremely important. Figuring out his cape was rather simple because I was studying the way cloth moves for Batman suit anyway. I mean, figuring out his cape wasn't really the hardest part. His symbol, though, on the other hand, was a little tricky because I wanted it to have that really layered look. So what I did was I made the red be a separate piece with the yellow being like an under layer. So it's almost like it's pieced together. So there's a yellow shield under and the S is on top of that. And that again was really fun. What I would suggest for rendering cloth is shade your entire drawing the way you want it to, use the colors you want, and then after you're done, create a new layer. Select the area where your cloth is painted on the painting. Use a pin light, and that's exactly what I did here. Use a pin light filter and apply the color you want the suit to look like. It's going to give it that really natural cloth looking feel, that really Alex Ross like painterly feeling. And that again is something extremely important to look at. what I'm doing here is basically just color correcting the image a little bit. Put my sign up there, and we are done. This is what the painting finally looks like. The green glow near Batman's hand is to denote kryptonite and everything. I hope you guys have had fun watching this. I hope you guys have learned something. Hope it's been valuable. And please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any requests, please let me know. And I'll see you guys next time.